nation mired in toxic partisanship, left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us here on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. We're live here on WYSL until 2 p.m. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Of course, we're live on our online streams as well, the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Free Solution group, and the Kevin Wilson Facebook page and Twitter account. Wherever you're watching or listening today, thank you for being here. You can leave your comments online, too, if you want to participate in the show there. And if you're not following our one of our pages, at least one of them, make sure you go do that. If you're listening on the radio, no, gosh, I want to make sure I watch that Thursday show with Kevin and Tim O'Connor that's online only, or I missed part of it. That is one way to go and catch those shows, is by following us on social media. And today we're going to talk about inflation, right? The new inflation numbers came out. Saw those, just shocking 9.1% inflation. And yeah, that's high. It's bad. It's really bad. That's the official numbers. Are they actually higher? Yeah, they might be. We'll go into some of the specific breakdowns of gasoline, energy, food, things like that, and we'll talk about what causes inflation, what policies or just stuff happening in the environment and in our economic situation might be causing inflation, and then of course, can we actually do anything about it? Can we as individuals do anything? Do we need to cajole our politicians and bureaucrats into changing policies in order to be able to address this? Whatever it is, we're going to talk about some of those issues today. Again, if you'd like to participate in the show, thoughts on this, give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. If you have thoughts on inflation, what's causing it, what we could do about it. And so again, let's break down what's actually happening here, right? So we have 9.1% inflation overall. It's the highest it's been since 1981. It's a 41-year high. And again, 1981, that's coming off the heels of the Carter administration. Again, when we had the stagflation of that era, right? There's not only inflation, but also a stagnant economy. And we're looking down the barrel of that same thing happening. And again, something we've been talking about for a few months. A lot of us, kind of fiscal conservative folks are like, hey, we're spending a lot of money here, and especially how we spent money during the pandemic, that could lead to a situation where we have rising out of control inflation, and where we're getting there. It's again 9.1%, and that's a 12-month adjusted rate. Like month over month, it's 1.1%. Again, overall of all the stuff they mentioned, like everything you go out and buy on average is 1.1% higher than last month, which is, if you think about that, that's pretty huge. And then 9.1% overall, right? So, and breaking that down into some other categories, right? Like food overall is 10.4% higher. Again, huge. You're paying I think that's like overall 12.2% is like food at home. So food you get in grocery stores is 12.2% higher. So when you're looking at those grocery store shelves, you're looking at the items, starting to price compare. I've been doing that a little bit more lately. Like I had kind of gotten like, oh, maybe, whatever, I'll just toss some extra stuff in. Now I get to the register. I'm sure many of you have seen this too. And you're like, wait, how the heck did I spend that much money? And you start breaking down the receipts. You're like, wait, does it always cost this much? And the answer is no, it's gone up quite a bit recently. And some of the other things in there too. So like energy costs just like way higher, right? So energy services, so like the electricity in your home is 19.4% higher, 13.7% higher for like electricity, and 38% higher for natural gas. Again, this is nationwide numbers, so take it for what it is. New York has its own stuff going on. The regions have their own stuff going on, but overall, that's where it's at. And again, the home electricity stuff being up 13.7%, that's huge. Again, I was doing some budgeting the other day, and I was like, man, do we usually spend this much money in the summer? I'm running the AC in the attic sometimes, to keep cool during my show, but like, I didn't think it was going to drive up our costs that much. Well, again, turns out it's not me. It's not what I'm doing. It's the cost of electricity going up. And gasoline up almost 60%, 59.9%. Now, again, are there other factors that go into this, like the conflict happening in Russia? Yeah, that is a factor. I'm not going to be like, oh, that's not a factor at all, right? Now, do I think it's fair for Joe Biden to be like, oh, that is the only cause of this, and his policies haven't caused energy prices, including gasoline, to go up? No, we're not letting Joe Biden off the hook for that. There's world events that are somewhat out of his control, but this is something that government policy does impact. And yeah, I know it's also impacted by shifts in demand and the ability to be able to scale up supply. We've talked about this. Tim and I have gotten in long conversations about this on our Thursday shows. Again, those shows are a little bit longer, more interrupted, so we've gotten into energy policy stuff. But there are government policies that impact gasoline prices, and there are things that the federal government could do about it, and they haven't yet. But we're going to get into some of the policy solutions and what the costs of this are a little bit later in the show. Right now, we're just going over stuff. There's certain prices that are, up quite a bit too, like just other specific call outs. Chicken, the cost of chicken is up 19%. That's the biggest increase ever. Groceries, again, that 12% increase is the biggest increase since annual increase since 1979. Again, when we're in the middle of the Carter era, late 70s inflation too. We're still experiencing that in this country. The rent prices up 5.8% too. And I do want to talk specifically about rent because kind of on a related note, Rochester's was noted as one of the top 10 most competitive housing markets in the country. And again, when you have hyper-competitive housing markets where you have a lot of folks who are trying to go after fewer goods, in this case, the goods being places to live, what ends up happening? The prices go up. So how do you increase that supply? And what are the bottlenecks to that supply? Because I've thrown all these numbers at you. There's all this stuff that all together, adds up to 9.1% inflation over the last year. So between this point last year to today, all of our stuff's gone up 9.1%, right? So what leads to that? And the obvious, the one that a lot of folks know, they understand, it's like, well, government spending could lead to that. Now, does it necessarily lead to that? No, not necessarily. Government spending in and of itself doesn't by itself lead to inflation, but when that level of spending is so far beyond what the economy can handle and beyond what is reasonable for a country to be able to do, is when you're essentially creating money out of thin air, and now you have all these outlets for it to go, that money becomes worth less. And again, that's the high level overarching view of this. It's not explaining I'm not going to dive deep into like the finer points of economics on this stuff, but the general idea is when you have an overabundance of money supply and you don't have the capacity for the economy to absorb that money, it can lead to more people having more money in the short term, chasing fewer goods. Again, what happens when you do that? Again, you have to find ways to scale up supply. Okay, if you can't scale up supply, or you do need if you can't scale up supply, then firms might raise prices because, like, well, I only have so many of these objects that I can sell at this time, and I'd rather get a bit of price for them, or I it's expensive to get those items because there's shipping issues. So, okay, so it's more expensive to get that stuff because there's these other issues here. Okay, so raise the prices a little bit, or you need to increase that capacity. Okay, so in order to pay for the new factory to build the widgets or whatever, it's going to cost money, and that increase in cost is reflected in the price of the new goods. So there's all these factors that go into this price. Now, again, when the progressives are like, oh, it's corporate greed doing this stuff, no, they're making rational economic decisions based on the demand of people. Again, if you have people with money chasing fewer goods, that makes sense to raise prices to try to help address those needs. And all this stuff kind of builds on itself, right? Now, so again, what happened within the last couple of years where you might have had that situation where you might have had pressures on both sides of this? Suddenly people have a little bit more disposable income in some senses, and then also a crunch in supply. Well, of course, that's the COVID crisis. That's what we got, right? When we had these, when we got the relief checks, and we got firms got PPP loans, and we had these multi-trillion-dollar spending bills. Suddenly, again, there's all this money going to the economy, but where does it go? Does it have an outlet for the economy to be able to absorb that? Well, no. What happened at the same time is that suddenly people are not working. Factories aren't producing, either by their own decision or by government command. Okay, so we have less stuff, but way more money, and a bunch of people have. Again, not everyone. I know some folks really suffered during the pandemic, but some folks because the checks went to so many people, a bunch of folks they didn't need that money directly. They got that relief check and they're like, well, cool. I'm gonna just go buy some stuff with it. Great. Again, what are the results of that? Well, supply chain issues and shortages of goods in stores. So we end up with inflation. And that's how we get to where we are today. So that spending, spending is a big part of that. But when we come back, I want to talk about the other government policies that can lead to this too, because it's not just the spending. Again, what are those policies that restrict supply? If you have a place for the money to go, it's all right. How do you solve the other end of that equation? Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Hey, this is Kevin Wilson, host of A Free Solution. You ever needed a tool for just one project, but didn't want to spend the cash for something you'd use just once or twice? Well, there's a new tool library in Rochester where you can borrow just the thing you need instead of buying a new one. It's called the Tool Shed from the Southeast Area Coalition, and membership starts at just $25 a year. Use it for home projects or to support your business. Learn more and become a member at seektoolshed.org. That's SEAC toolshed.org.
As a veteran of the United States military, I can finally get the opportunity to enjoy special events, things that we couldn't afford, thanks to VetTix.
Every empty seat at a concert, a game, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Visit vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
Only available in the WISL store at WISL1040.com. Official top quality tees, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting the colorful WISL logo or the already famous Mount Worstmore line of merch depicting Mount Rushmore style are for worst presidents. Of course, you know who is front and center up on that mountain. WISL official items make perfect gifts, or they're a great way for you to make a personal statement. Locally produced and sold only in the WISL store at WISL1040.com.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us. Again, we're live here at WYSL until 2 p.m. and online as well. Leave your comments online or give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000 if you want to participate in today's show. We're talking about inflation. Again, 9.1% inflation rate, new numbers coming out. Again, this is a long time coming, right? Like, we knew that this could be a consequence of massive government spending packages. We knew that, the government has been just ramping up their spending, taking on massive amounts of debt. And again, the economy has to grow enough to be able to absorb that, or it's going to lead to inflation. Again, this is something that, like, in theory, the Fed is supposed to solve. We'll talk about Fed stuff in a sec, but this isn't just a Joe Biden thing either. Again, I said before, politically, I know Joe Biden is the Democratic Party is probably going to get like their butts kicked in November just because inflation is high, and it is their fault. Like, to be clear, it's totally their fault. But it's also the Republicans' fault. Again, the Republicans and Donald Trump also spent just massive amounts of money in the COVID crisis and in the years preceding that have also led to this situation. So let's not pretend that merely voting for Republicans is something that solves this. It doesn't. It's both the major parties need to like get their act together and not dump so much money into the economy. And again, the problem is that it's really politically popular to do so. Again, the COVID relief stuff was politically popular. The Build Back Better, is something new being proposed to, and it's the PPP loans are popular though to try to save businesses. Okay, so like great, you want to provide people with some opportunity to have enough money to get through a bad situation. You want to go out quick so you don't have means testing. You can just send it out to everyone, and lo and behold, not only was there a ton of abuse we found out in the PPP program, but also, again, we have a lot of inflation from the relief checks. I know some people were helped a little bit by it, even though it's not really enough to get through that much in most places. But at the end of the day, for many folks, it was just a means to be able to have a bit of extra cash to go and spend on stuff. That's what it was. And we're seeing the consequence. And again, the Democrats especially, but really everyone hasn't learned the lesson from this. It, like, hilarious thing is you still get like proposals for inflation relief checks. Again, it's like saving someone who's drowning by throwing more water at them. It's not going to work. You can't throw more money at the problem and expect people to have relief from inflation issues. It just makes it worse. And we also might see, a new Build Back Better proposal. Again, the original one didn't really get through. There's the COVID relief stuff, infrastructure stuff, all that. But there's all these other wish list items that the Biden administration would love to do. But what's going to happen when you dump even more money back into the economy again? Well, again, you're going to lead to more inflation. Again, short term seems popular, seems nice, right? Or cutting off that government spigot, like, it feels like it hurts, but that's what you need to do. And unfortunately, the incentives aren't there for politicians to be responsible and cut the tide of inflation. Again, this is what the Federal Reserve in theory is supposed to do. So let's talk about Fed policy now, right? Like, when you hear people talk about interest rates, the Federal Reserve, they set a certain kind of interest rate that then has kind of ripple effects through the economy, right? So when you hear about them setting, increasing the interest rate by 0.75%, that kind of makes it more expensive for institutions to get the cash flow to then be able to lend money out to someone like you or me or a business owner or whatever, right? And so they have these interest rates to either encourage more borrowing or discourage borrowing, right? And that borrowing could then be used as, capital to fuel, again, the new home growth, new home building, new business opening, whatever, right? Like a whole bunch of things, right? So when you make those interest rates really cheap, it's not expensive to borrow money. There's no like long-term cost of taking it out. More people are likely to do it. And, again, take that money and invest in those things. When you make it more expensive, when suddenly like it's 6-7%, for the average person to be able to get a loan to buy or build a house compared to, 3 to 4%, that those extra couple percentage points is a lot of extra money then that either needs to, again, go to, that's money out of your pocket that will go to the bank and that, would discourage you from taking out that loan. And we saw that in the housing crisis. It's, again, relatively cheap to get a loan. So people were getting loans, more people were buying houses. They're moving to markets that were, that had available inventory, Rochester included, and then bidding up home prices like quite a bit because, again, they were able to get that money a bit easier. So the Fed interest rate, by raising it, what they hope to do is just to kind of slow that process down to get more expensive to borrow, less likely that you're going to go and get that money to build a house that you can't afford or start a business that maybe you're not ready for, whatever. That's the idea behind it, right? But what can happen with this, right, is we've gotten used to having relatively like low interest rates for a very long time. We've been gassing the economy for a long time, run it hot because we don't have exactly a market in this, right? Like there's this artificial entity called the Federal Reserve that impacts, how much cash is available in the economy, right? We've been gassing it for a long time. The idea behind the Fed is that they should be able to, they are knowledgeable enough to know when to turn that dial up and down to prevent recession, right? Because if they turn that dial up too much, it can crash the economy. Again, you make the interest rates too high or move it too fast, you crash the economy, and because no one is doing anything, it's become too expensive to borrow money, and that creates ripple effects throughout the economy and the construction industry and small business growth and all the industries that feed those things. And suddenly the economy grinds to a halt. Stop. We might be seeing that already, again, negative GDP growth, because there's all these factors that go into it. It's complicated. And part of my criticism of the Federal Reserve, because we don't have like a pure market for interest rates, is that it is not possible for the Fed chairman or the board of governors or anyone to possibly know all of the information they would need to make decisions on such a grand scale. And every little tiny thing has massive, massive impacts in the economy. Again, there's not all these decentralized forces that control stuff. I mean, there is, but like, they're so powerful, so influential that even misspeaking slightly can crash stock markets and cause financial institutions to freak out. And that's part of the danger of that type of system, of having a central banking system. Like, in theory, if you believe the progressives, is that we have this system to prevent the uncontrolled free market from being able to jump up and down and have these wild swings and impact the economy in ways that are uncontrolled. That, like, again, it's about, in the same way I talk about politicians wanting to give the illusion of control, this is also what the Federal Reserve does. It gives people the illusion that some group of people has this handled, that like there's someone watching out, there's someone smart enough to be able to go and make a decision that can produce a more positive outcome than what would happen if people were left to their own liberties. That's the promise of this system. But as we've seen, again, now we're about to head into the second recession of my adult lifetime. As we've seen, they are not able to deliver on that promise. Federal Reserve policies that allow very easy access to capital, overprinting of currencies, quantitative easing, all this stuff by an unelected group of bureaucrats has massive effects on us. No, whatever. End the Fed. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show. 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back on A Free Solution in just a few minutes.
Celebrating 35 years.
WYSL.
AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the Newstead NBC Weather Center for tonight. We'll look for mostly cloudy skies out there. Temperatures will be in the 50s and low 60s on Thursday. Some morning clouds, maybe a brief shower or two, and then we'll see some clearing in the afternoon. Temperatures will be in the 70s, so a little cooler, a little less humid on Thursday. Friday looks good. Sunshine near 80, warmer weekend, mid-80s. Saturday near 90, Sunday. I'm Rich Cadelia, WYSL.
Summer fun follows you both on and off-road thanks to your new ride from Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Anthony Drive off Route 96 in Victor. You can get savings and selection in America's favorite four-wheel drive vehicles like the 22 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4, just $299 a month for 36 months. Must be Conquest Lessee. The 22 Ram 1500 Classic Warlock Quad Cab 4x4 pickup is just $259 a month for 36 months. Must be Conquest Lessee. Test drive a 22 Ram Power Wagon, 5 in stock to choose from. And here's a great way to save with special 0% APR savings through Chrysler Capital on Wagoneer Series 2 and 3 vehicles only during July. Victor has 4 vehicles in stock under this program, so hurry, ask about program conditions. On Ram and Compass, first payment, DMV, taxes and fees due at signing. Other conditions may apply. See dealer for details. We're here to fully serve Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram customers in Victor, Canandaigua, Macedon, Fairport, and throughout the Metro and Finger Lakes. Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 6560 Anthony Drive in Victor.
Here's a special message for veterans and surviving spouses from Alpine Manor. You may qualify for a special benefit from the VA after applying for funds received for aid and attendance. Your stay at Alpine Manor could be as low as $600 per month. Be sure to call for details. At Alpine Manor, their pride is personalized care for seniors who are not yet ready for a nursing home. There are supervised activities and medications, full laundry and housekeeping services, 3 dietary-approved home-cooked meals, and a bedtime snack, all provided in immaculate surroundings. Be sure to call for details on this new program for the veteran in your family. Keep the golden years carefree years at Alpine Manor, nestled in the picturesque rolling hills east of 390 in Livingston County, just 20 minutes from Rochester. New York State Health Department license. Call 346-5880. That's 346-5880 for a no-obligation tour or information, or visit alpinemanor.com. Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
WYSL.
Hi, this is Gary Mervis. Camp Good Days is now hiring. We have a number of opportunities for you to join our family. If you are looking for a way to make a real difference, there are openings at our offices in Mendon, as well as our beautiful recreational facility on Cuba Lake. Check us out at campgooddays.org. We look forward to hearing from you. It could be life-changing.
WYSL.
Bed Races Barbecue Bungee Trampoline.
Bed Races Barbecue Bungee Trampoline. Bed Races Barbecue Bungee Trampoline.
The rides and attractions, even that crazy bed race, are on Saturday, August 6th and Sunday, August 7th, all free. We can get more details at limafest.org.
Bed Races Barbecue Bungee Trampoline. Bed Races Barbecue Bungee Trampoline.
And 17 free bands.
To celebrate State Farm's surprisingly great rates, we gave this song surprisingly great lyrics.
State Farm, prices made just for you. That's what I said now. Prices that surprise you. Just go ahead now, keep that money in your pockets.
Call State Farm Insurance Agent Christina Breen Hale today, 225-8480.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Willis, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us here on WYSL. We'll be live until 2 p.m. today on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Or leave your comments online. Again, we have the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Free Solution group, or the Kevin Wilson page. Wherever you're listening today, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the show. And so we're talking about inflation today. So we're talking about the 9.1% 12-month inflation. Again, that's all of our stuff where we have to spend 9.1% more to get these same things here in the U.S., at least nationwide, right? And again, that varies from place to place, right? In places like California, you're spending more on gas than you are in, say, Florida or even New York, where it is high, but depends on where you're at. So we talked about some of the ways in which the federal government injects a whole bunch of money into the economy and kind of artificially messes with the market mechanisms that might be able to kind of keep an economy in check, right? Because we don't truly have a market economy in there. So there's a lot of aspects of it that are, but there are intervening government forces that can distort and sometimes create massive bubbles in our economy that end up with higher highs but lower lows. And that was the promise of things like the Federal Reserve, that it was supposed to fix those things. Again, I'm being pretty generous, I think, to like what the intent of that system is. I'm not trying to totally lay into why it's terrible, but it kind of is, right? And I want to talk about some of the other stuff too, right? So when you have all this money being put in the economy, it needs somewhere to go, and kind of establish that the problem is that there isn't anywhere to go because there's government lockdowns in the COVID era, right? Like we literally can't produce this stuff sometimes, but there's other policies too that impact it too, right? Like even in places where stuff can be produced, it's sometimes hard to get it over here, right? So one of those barriers is tariffs. Again, we've seen increases in tariffs from the Trump administration time and from the Biden administration, who've continued to pursue that policy of restrictionism, which means that, again, it's harder for when our supply systems either go down or are disrupted by anything else. You're going to see it with formula, we see it with lumber, we see it with energy production, we see it with retail goods, we see it with all this stuff. There isn't that outlet to be able to get it in from somewhere else and to have the prices remain a little bit more stable. Second part is, even if you don't have those tariff barriers and other barriers from being able to bring stuff in, because sometimes the FDA, sometimes it's whatever it is preventing stuff from getting in, you also have some of the logistical issues. Like, remember when there's still issues with being able to get stuff into ports and get that processed and get it into the right place, right? And so what ends up happening is that because of sometimes local or state rules on the shipping industry, like they can't do things like have third shifts on the West Coast, where you're able to have unloading and processing of goods 24/7. You also now have new restrictions that were meant to go against contractors in California for like Uber, Lyft, other freelancers type of stuff. Like, again, a very bad law that maybe we'll spend like a whole episode talking about one time. But it also seems to be impacting the trucking industry as well. So now there may be further restrictions on the ability of truckers who are not affiliated with the company or whatever, being able to go in and get the stuff they need and get it to where it is in the country. So now there's going to be an even greater bottleneck on the supplies that are coming in from the West Coast. Again, stuff being produced in Asia and China, Japan, India, wherever, it doesn't matter, just coming in from all places across the Pacific. Tougher to get in, more expensive to get in because of government policy, because of Donald Trump and Joe Biden's policies. And once it gets here, there are government-created barriers to being able to get those goods onshore and on the trucks, and from those trucks to the places where we need them. So all this stuff, again, every barrier that the government puts in the way either prevents the goods from getting here in the first place. Again, you have a smaller supply, or just makes it much more expensive. And are these companies generously eating the cost of the expense? No, not really. They're just, it gets paid for by us, the end users, the end consumers. It gets reflected in the final price. All of this stuff adds up. And yeah, that's where we're at on that supply side stuff again. And so lockdowns and government policy do directly contribute to the rising cost of goods. Again, it's something that President Biden and the folks speaking for his administration want to just say like, well, it's supply issues, right? Like, well, again, where do those supply issues come from? And to just hand wave it away and like, supply issues, companies they need to figure it out. Are there government policies that the federal government or state governments, various local governments can control to make it easier for those supplies to get to where they need? Another one I had mentioned too, and Jones Act is another one too. Having restrictions on if you want to ship something between two American ports, needing to use an American produced and flagged ship makes things far more expensive than it needs to be. If you can use non-American ships or ships that are flying under a different flag, and then you're able to cheaply ship that stuff between let's say New York and Miami, great. That lowers the cost of good. That might be a cheaper and more effective way of doing that than trying to put that on an overland truck or train going the same distance. So I don't know that for sure, but it might be. And in some situations, it definitely is. Like when we're trying to get stuff to Puerto Rico or Hawaii, for instance, ends up being incredibly expensive to move goods between two American ports because of a barrier that our government put in the way. And again, for those places, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, wherever, the cost of living there is just substantially higher for that reason. And we don't need to do this. It's not necessary. They can change that, today. Well, not quite today, but like pretty soon they could change that if they wanted to make lives easier for people living in this country. It's all these other factors that go into, why wouldn't you want American ships? I don't know, man, it's expensive. That's what it is. Like, I'm not so tied to that I think someone else should have to pay 2, 3, 4 times as much for goods to get there. That I like just put it on a ship, just get the relief. Again, when we saw that too, we saw the Jones Act regulations lifted after, was it Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico and they were devastated. We just need to get the goods over there. Okay, well, the American ships can't go between Puerto Rican ports and East Coast ports. All right, so let's lift that. Let's just get the stuff over to there. Just get it over to there as fast as possible. We can do that. Let's waive the Jones Act again. Let's get rid of it altogether. And there's a few other things too. Again, there's other factors like, and why is housing expensive in some places? Well, in some places, again, Rochester, New York being one of them, is number 7 in the top 10 most competitive markets. Well, a bunch of people want to move here during the pandemic, right? Because Rochester's relatively cheap. You can do remote work here. And so folks from, big cities like New York moved up to the Rochester area, got the nice New York City money while living in Rochester. Great. Good deal, right? But now there's, again, more folks chasing fewer goods. If you don't increase the housing supply to compensate for that, you're going to end up with a problem. You're going to end up with rapidly rising rents and rapidly rising housing prices. And again, what we're seeing, housing prices kind of cool down a little bit, in part because of the interest rate changes, right? That is, it's for better or worse, something that's going to happen is a little bit less of a competitive housing market, which depends on what position you're in right now, if you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. And again, in a lot of these cities, again, Rochester, New York being one of them, but also, places like Miami, Pittsburgh, a bunch of Florida cities, because a bunch of folks want to move down to Florida for probably to not have to pay income tax or to not have to deal with COVID restrictions. Okay, more people chasing fewer goods. If the Florida government, which we're not like, we're up here in New York, we think is relatively free, but the Florida governments on the local level aren't allowing policies that let people build more housing to meet demand, you end up with rising out of control home prices, rising out of control apartment prices. Folks like my brother who lives down in Florida right now is saying it's like, man, it gets super expensive, super quick, because they aren't allowed in some cases to build more stuff, or if you are, it takes a while. All right, so thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. When we come back, more things that we could actually do about this on the individual level, on the government level, wherever. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
The WYSL store is now open. With nicer weather, your car needs an official Voice of Liberty bumper sticker. There's a great selection to help you show your love of God, the Constitution, and free and safe schools. Here are just a few available. Shut Up, Fauci, Kathy Hochul, Save America, Support the Second Amendment, Scam Alert, January 6th, God, Please Help Us, Close the Mexican Border, Save America, Stop Voting for Democrats. And there are gas pump stickers reading, Democrats did this. These are standard weather-resistant bumper stickers guaranteed to get you horn honks and thumbs up in traffic. Choose from other locally made WYSL Voice of Liberty merch too, like tees, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Perfect gifts for any Liberty lover. Check out the exclusive WYSL Mount Worstmore shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting our 4 worst presidents. Guess who's front and center? Shop the WYSL store at WYSL1040.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Hey, this is Kevin Wilson, host of A Free Solution. You ever needed a tool for just one project, but didn't want to spend the cash for something you'd use just once or twice? Well, there's a new tool library in Rochester where you can borrow just the thing you need instead of buying a new one. It's called the Tool Shed from the Southeast Area Coalition, and membership starts at just $25 a year. Use it for home projects or to support your business. Learn more and become a member at seektoolshed.org. That's SEAC toolshed.org.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thanks again for joining us. We're talking about inflation today. New inflation numbers came out, 9.1%, just ridiculously high. Going to be so hard on families. And I want to read this comment from John. I'll try to skim over it quick. It says, this is John on Facebook. He says, middle class may have a home where the value of the mortgage payment is decreased by inflation, but 71% of the income is robbed regularly from inflation, so the middle class becomes poorer overall. Poor man is especially attacked by inflation. Poor man pays the inflation tax on 100% of his assets, which, however small they may be, are inevitably cash denominated. 100% of his income, everything he expects to receive his income, including the labor of his own hands. So let's dig into that at the beginning. Like, how does inflation, impact folks, right? Like John's point is that, okay, well, like if, you are, because a lot of this depends, right? Like, if your money is worth a little bit less and you have debt, right? Like house payment, the value of your asset, the house goes up, but the level of debt, if you have a fixed rate mortgage, stays the same, right? So in theory, it's not a bad thing, right? So if you're in a good position, if you're able to, it's a good thing if you're able to bring in enough income, along with the rising inflation to compensate for that, right? If your income stays the same, again, then you have a problem, right? Because it doesn't matter because everything else is going up. But if you are able to make more income and, because of inflation, you're making more money, your level of debt stays the same, but the value of your asset goes up. Great. Again, if you're poor, if you have a lot of debt and you make more money, in theory, that's not necessarily a bad thing in the short run, but any of those gains you make by being able to pay off your debt easier could be wiped out by, well, you still need to buy food, right? And if you're wealthy, you have other kind of hedges against inflation, right? Again, those assets that you own that are now suddenly worth more. So it could be stuff like a house or land, but it could also be things like stocks. It depends on how everything's going to shake out with maybe a recession coming, maybe not, but a lot of times stocks can be a good hedge against inflation because the value of that stuff is still going to go up, so you end up with more with assets that are still worth a certain amount of money, even, as long as you continually invest in that. Again, I'm not financial advisor. You have to talk to someone else about that, but that's kind of the general idea behind this stuff. But again, especially if you're poor, and you don't have a lot of assets that you can put your money into, any savings you might get by gaining a higher wage through inflation and then being able to pay off that easier is going to be eaten up by other things. And so that's again the devastating impact it's going to have on a lot of folks is policies like this. And again, it's something that it's policies often at every level of government. We talked about the spending. We talked about the Federal Reserve stuff. We talked about, the regulatory barriers that could be lifted that would allow supplies to get in easier, that would allow goods to be manufactured easier, that would allow businesses. It would give an outlet to all that spending. Again, inflation happens when there's no outlet to all of the government spending or just general wealth generated by the economy. When there's nowhere for it to go, prices rise. That's what happens. And again, Rochester is not immune to that. What was fascinating about, I mentioned how Rochester is one of the most competitive markets, right? It's number 7 on this list from Rent Cafe. Like the average, number of vacant days for apartments, just 39. 96.5% of apartments are occupied. There are 18 renters for every apartment out there, and then we have one of the lowest rates of share of new apartments, 0.2%. That's in the city. There's other issues on like a region-wide level of what happens here, and the city, to their credit, like are kind of making some moves to relieve this stuff, right? But it might not be enough, and it might not be quick enough to make a difference in this case. And again, when you end up with that situation where you have stagnation in the economy because our governments, which now control so many aspects of what we are allowed to do, are not nimble enough, not dynamic enough to be able to respond to changing conditions, you end up with you can end up with a recession, because you got on both sides that the too much money and the government not allowing markets to respond effectively enough to those changing conditions, and that can hurt us. Again, things that we could do about it, again, obviously would be great if we could get politicians in who would allow free markets to exist, who can lift these barriers to production, and who can spend responsibly, right? Now, been talking about that a long time. The last, 20 years don't give me a lot of hope that that's something we're likely to see. We might be stuck with situations where we have less dynamic governments. We can advocate on the local level for these things to happen. We can also, again, on the individual level, there's only so much things to do, and I can't give like advice exactly on like how to have your family weather with that. There's financial experts who are much better at that, more qualified at that. I can't do that. But on the individual level, like businesses that are able to innovate faster than the government can shut them down, that's, I think, where we're going to see some positivity here. That's where we're going to see some opportunity for people to be able to respond to the situation at hand, if they can do so without getting squashed or regulated to death by the government first. Things in the economy happen so much quicker now that it is possible. See, we saw that with like Uber, right? Like they saw a market need and they just went about trying to address it. Just, okay, like we're going to figure this out. We're going to find the workers and we're going to get them to use their own cars. We're going to go. And then the taxi, folks just couldn't respond quick enough to that. Oh, whoa, this thing is here. And they're responding better to our customer needs. And government shut this down, require licensing, we'll regulate the contractors as employees, blah, blah, blah. It took years for them to get to that point because government is slow. It operates slow. And so moving fast and breaking things might be part of the solution to that. Is, can we innovate fast enough? Are there enough bold entrepreneurs out there who are going to try to, move ahead and ask forgiveness instead of permission, that our economy is able to evolve in a way to meet the rising needs of our population, the supply chain issues, and the outlets for the extra cash? I don't know. We'll see what it is. I said, but the big thing is that the politicians and policymakers have to be responsible. These things are huge. They're massive. And when a state has the threat of coercion to back up what they want to do, when they're able to use force to implement their ideas, we end up in trouble. And so that's what we have to do, is continue to find ways to work through that as much as possible to try to remove those barriers. But I think we're in for a rough ride, folks. That's what it is. We may be in for some of the worst economic events we've seen in the last 40 years, and that's going to lead to other, challenging political and social situations. It's not too late. We can still do things to fix it. I don't have all the answers here, but of course we're going to keep talking about them here on the Free Solution. And I'll throw out a pitch again. Thursday evenings, usually around 9 p.m. Me and Tim O'Connor will do a show. We missed last week, but usually we'll do a show. That's where we do Fake News Fridays now. Make sure you listen. Follow us on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, and the Kevin Wilson pages. We're out on all of those. Thanks again for joining us today. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, folks. Take care.